It's important for people to recognize their civic responsibility and their obligation. I mean, we work for you, the people, and it's important that we hear from people. And a lot of my best legislation has come from listening to constituents that had concerns.
Welcome to Reaching Out. I'm your host, Zack Carter. Please join me as I speak with a diverse group of people to find out their thoughts on religion, politics, and culture. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today at Reaching Out with Zack Carter. I'm your host, Zack Carter, and I'm here today with Senator Amanda Chase. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Zack.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome. How did you get into local politics? You're a local senator here. Curious how you got into it.
Well, quite honestly, it was a calling that I felt that I was supposed to step in at a particular season and basically serve the constituents of this district. I'd worked behind the scenes for a number of years as a staffer for different elected officials, and I just felt this tug that this was something that I was supposed to do at this particular time. I had also worked as in my neighborhood to fight a zoning case. Okay. Interestingly enough. And so there were about 9 of us that worked together as a team. And interestingly enough, it was bipartisan. Okay. Half Republican, half Democrats. And we were trying to prevent a road from going through the heart of our neighborhood. And at the time, I was a neighborhood swim coach. Okay. And I had concerns that the kids would be riding their bikes to swim practice and possibly be, injured or worse yet, hit by a car. So I did everything I could. I was not political at all. I mean, I voted. I did my civic responsibility there, but was not engaged in any way in GOP or anything like that. I was a busy mom, and before that, worked full time in different capacities and S&P 500 companies and at the Federal Reserve Bank. I worked in the private sector and the public sector for a while. Okay, so you've done that. Too busy.
Wow, it sounds like it.
Too busy for politics.
It sounds like it. And one of the things I wanted to talk about when I got into here is that I know you're passionate about local politics, and I keep hearing that you need to make sure you vote in the local elections as much as you vote in the national, because the local elections are even more important in some respects. Is that something you agree with? What are your opinion on local politics and why they're important?
I feel like every election is important, whether it's local. I know some people just vote in the federal elections, but I think every single election that you can voice your opinion, you should educate yourself on the issues, educate yourself on the candidates themselves, and vote every time. In Virginia, we have the unique opportunity to have an election every year in Virginia, so it's very easy to remember that the first Tuesday in November you just always vote.
Okay. Good to know.
If there's a special election, it's usually in June. So I encourage everybody to vote. It's your only way of, if you like the way government works and you like your tax rate, to vote in support of those candidates. If you don't like things, to change it. And so one of the things that I've really strived to do is bring government to the people. A lot of times people feel disconnected from their elected officials. They may feel like, there's this big chasm. I mean, and that culture where, with Congressman Brad and myself have really tried hard to change that culture. We try to make ourselves accessible through, media interviews. I've got Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase on Thursdays, which is a call-in show. Anybody can call in.
Where can people go to listen to that?
It's on 97.7 FM, and it's on 8:20 a.m. So
like on the morning drive when you're going to work?
Well, in the evening, yeah. It's in the afternoon,
okay.
Yeah. It's right now it's 4 to 5. We're looking at going to Fridays for session, just because I'll be in committee meetings and that type of thing during session. But it's important for people to recognize their civic responsibility and their obligation. I mean, we work for you, the people, and it's important that we hear from people. And a lot of my best legislation has come from listening to constituents that had concerns.
Interesting. Well, so let's kind of dive into some of those topics that I know that you're passionate about, that you're on committees of. I know that you are on committees for education, transportation, and health. Let's start with education and just cover that for a minute. What's your opinion on the role of government when it comes to education?
Wow, we could talk about this for hours.
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Well, I'm definitely, I believe that we need to take the politics out of our schools on a number of fronts.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, let's just take, for instance, the school start times. And let's talk about, there's always before the General Assembly every year a bill that would state, when do we start our schools? Do we start it at Labor Day? Right now, by law, unless you have an exemption, public schools will start school after Labor Day. And that bill was based, it's called the King's Dominion Bill. And that bill basically, in my opinion, puts economic development above what's best for our students. And so, I will be championing that particular bill to end that practice and allow the school boards who are elected by the people, allow the parents, along with their elected representatives at the school board level to choose when schools should open. Now, they may choose to keep it at Labor Day, but let's let the schools, with the parents, pick that option for our students. Many students, I know my boys played football for Manchester High School, and they pretty much play football year-round, but especially in the summer months, they're playing football. And so for my boys, it was no big deal, if we started school in August. I mean, they probably wouldn't like that very much,
yeah.
but really, I think that decision should rest with the school board, and they are elected by the people, and they are having those conversations with the parents and determining, what's best there.
So if you don't mind me interrupting for a second, what practical ways does the start time affect the students? Because most people might hear and say, well, who cares if it starts before or after Labor Day, as long as school's happening. So
Right.
How does it affect the students?
Right. Well, it's interesting. Whenever you talk to the teachers that are doing college prep classes, a lot of them will teach kids, do test preparation for different college prep classes. And so whenever they're competing with other students outside of the state of Virginia or outside of our particular region, I mean, they're getting more teaching time with their teachers than those that start later. So they're a little bit at a disadvantage. There is also there's some discussion in Chesterfield, and something that I know the school board wants to do is have the high school to start school later, to give those students who are growing, who are adolescent, to get more rest in the morning, to sleep in. It's what their bodies are, as they're going through puberty and all that. They need that extra time to sleep in the morning. I know already with my boys starting back to school this week, I come home and they are sacked out on the sofa because they are exhausted because they have to get up so early. And it's important to look at what the American for Pediatrics says on that, which is basically later start times are better for our teenage kids.
Interesting. Well, and so let's talk about something else that's practical in education that's kind of been debated about a lot. What are your opinions on private schools and charter schools? I know some people argue that those are better for low-income areas, and when I've researched it myself, it seems like it's very torn. Some articles you read are like it's catastrophic to people that go to charter schools, and others are like it's the best thing ever. So what is your opinion?
Well, I think more options is better. Right? We homeschooled for 9 years. I homeschooled for 9 years. So obviously,
so your kids are the homeschool kids. I had some friends. I had some friends that were the homeschool kids.
But we've done it all. I mean, we've done private school, we've done public school, which is where my kids have been for the last 6 years. We've done homeschool. We've done it all, and I think there are advantages to each one. I think it's important for parents to be able to have choices so that they can be able to individualize specialize their child's education to their interests and to what learning style works best for them, and at different seasons. I mean, I was able to home educate my kids when they were younger, and then as they got older, they went to a private school and then later to public school, and that worked for our family. But I think more options is better.
Okay, that's great. That's great. So let's switch topics real quick. Let's switch over to healthcare. Let's talk about healthcare for a minute. So with the new Trump tax plan, I know there's a section that is designed to be a mechanism to defund Obamacare eventually. How do you see this playing out in the healthcare industry in Virginia?
Well, this is a very complicated issue because
You're
we're
supposed to
talking
solve it
about
right now.
Medicaid and Medicare together, and it's a program that is a partnership between the state and the federal governments to help those folks who are typically you're looking at disabled children, intellectually disabled, physically disabled, and women. Quite honestly. The biggest challenge that I can see on this is how do you address the cost? How do we make sure that everyday average families can afford quality health care? I think regardless of what party you're on, that is ultimately the goal. And so how do we get there? There are different ways to do that. I mean, we currently have health sharing plans that are available. I co-patroned a bill last year called
What's health sharing plans for those that don't know?
So that is basically where individuals pool their resources together. They pay a certain amount per month that's agreed on in advance to pay for the medical needs of those in the group as they come up.
Okay. So like small businesses, a bunch of small busineses can band together.
Right. There's typically some type of coalition. I think I've heard of Liberty Health Share. There's a number of them. I think even for faith-based groups.
So like churches can band together.
Okay. Absolutely. So that is already available, and that was actually built into Obamacare, and it was considered one of the exemptions under that. You also have direct primary care, which is whenever doctors have the ability to opt out of the traditional plans that you typically see when you go to the doctor and you give them your insurance card and you pay your copay, and insurance pretty much dictates what services you provide. Some of doctors have said, you know what, I'm going to pull away from that program. I'm going to have a contract with me and my doctor, and I'm going to pay a set fee every month. And you see your doctor as often as you need to for that set price per month that you're paying for certain preventative type services, if you will, healthcare services. But one of the bills that I will be introducing this year is called the Healthcare Cost Transparency Bill. And what that bill is going to encourage our healthcare providers to do is to provide you an estimated cost of services before you have the service done. A lot of times, if you go to the doctor, and especially if you don't have health insurance, you don't know what the cost is.
Yeah.
And I remember, in fact, one time going to the doctor, and they said, okay, thank you for your insurance card. Now I want you to sign this form saying that you're going to pay whatever your insurance doesn't pay for, and sign on the dotted line.
Wow.
And I said, what is the cost?
Yeah.
Well, they don't tell you the cost, but I think they should.
Yeah, it's like going to a car mechanic. I mean, if you don't know anything about cars, they're like, yeah, we're going to replace this. And you're like, oh, well, how much is that going to cost? And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out later.
That's right. It's like signing a blank check, quite honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think we need to have some more transparency on the front end there.
Yeah, so it would be something where they say, like, this procedure is going to cost between $1,000 and $3,000, so at least you have kind of a ceiling on.
Figure,
yeah, okay.
Like, so you can plan with your family budget how much it is going to cost.
And doctors wouldn't be able to charge above that? Is that so that's the thought?
Well, that is the thought. So, I mean, and it does not apply to emergency services. This is non-emergency services. So, the thought is here, if you have a pretty standard procedure, you can call up and say, look, I'm going to have this done. How much is it going to cost? So you can you should be able to shop around different doctors and find out estimated cost of services that way.
Interesting. So in your opinion, do you eventually hope that Obamacare is that we get rid of it and we replace it with something else, or and replace it with the free market or whatever it is, or are you hoping that we'll find ways to keep Obamacare going?
I am not a supporter of Obamacare. I feel like Virginia has done the right thing by, I've always seen it as a Trojan horse. Medicaid has become something that it was not designed to do. It was supposed to be a safety net.
Yeah.
And so under Obamacare, able-bodied people are able to have access to the system. It was not designed for that purpose. And what we have seen over this past year is it's imploded.
Yeah.
Because it's financially not sustainable.
Yeah, and I've heard people say that it can also eventually expand government to the point where they can tell you what you can and can't do as far as smoking. You can't eat sweets because if someone else is paying for your health care, then you can't be a burden on the system overall if you're eating really bad for you foods. And so eventually the government could come in and tell you can't do this, you can't do that.
I mean, that's the thing. It's so open-ended, and you don't know what this is leading to. I think it's better for the states to, one of the options presented, which I like better than others, and we're still every day looking for better solutions, but the idea that the states would get a block grant and that we would be able to qualify individuals who needed that help and give them money, give them private insurance from that block grant money.
Sounds great.
I just don't think the federal government is doing a very good job with Medicaid in general. And in fact, if you look at the quality of care of those who are already on it, it is not good.
Yeah.
It's not good at all. And for them to want to expand that I think would not give them what they're really looking for, which is quality health care.
Okay. All right, so let's cover transportation real quick. So we touched on healthcare, we touched on education. So what are the current issues that are most important to you about public transportation in Virginia that you would like to see changed?
Well, one of the things that the General Assembly has done is taken the transportation issue. It's important for people to get to work. It's one of the factors that companies that are looking to come to Virginia look at. They look at our transportation. What forms of transportation do we have? How efficient is it? And quite honestly, in some parts of my district, depending on who you want to talk to, they may or may not want light rail. Most of Chesterfield that I've talked to, they don't want light rail.
Light rail, what is that again?
So like the Amtrak, the Metro,
Okay.
That type of thing, which a lot of people think of when they think of the light rail. What I would say that we have done right is something called Smart Scale. And what that has done, what has happened in the past, before I actually was elected about the year 2015, there was a system in place that was more political as far as whether you got funding for your roads or not. This system called Smart Scale has taken that out and has given that responsibility, delegated that responsibility to the localities. And basically how that works is they have metrics that they go by for each project. So they submit these metrics to VDOT, and it takes into account the cost of the project, how long it'll get done, what project's getting done. So it's a qualitative and a quantitative analysis that puts it in a succinct spreadsheet type format and rates these projects. VDOT will rate these projects and decide based on the money that was allotted by the General Assembly which projects we can do and complete. Before the system was in place, you had a lot of uncompleted projects, and it would change every year because the legislature would change as people came and left the Senate and the House. You have that influence where each delegate or senator had their pet projects or road projects in their area. This helped eliminate that and to make it more of an efficient system.
Okay, great. Well, cool. Well, we've talked a little bit about local government, some of the stuff that you try to help take care of, that you're since where you're at. Interested in going a little bit on the macro scale, talking about government as a whole in America real quick. I'm curious, as a Republican, on your opinion on Donald Trump. This is the divisive issue between Republicans and Democrats.
Sure.
So I'm curious on if you could rate Trump, what would you rate him and why? We've got A, B, C, D, E, F scale.
Yeah.
Or not E, take out the E. That's not an education.
I will tell you quite honestly, in the primary, I supported another candidate. I was a Cruz supporter.
Okay.
However, I did support Donald Trump in the general election after he won the election, and I have generally been supportive, not of everything he said necessarily, but some of the things that he has done. I've appreciated. I look at our economy right now, which is doing much better. If you look at the S&P 500, stocks are doing well. The unemployment is going down. We've got businesses that are going to be coming back to the states. We've got business with the announcement of the corporate income tax being lowered. I mean, we had one of the highest corporate income taxes in the world, and so companies were leaving the U.S. So now we're becoming more competitive with other countries. I think that is a great accomplishment.
Apparently the corporate income tax is still higher than most of the Western developed world, but
Sweden is at 13%.
Yeah,
so
and we went down to what?
21%.
21? Okay. Yeah, so at least it's a little bit more competitive now.
Yes.
But I've been hearing that from a lot of the Republicans I listen to, is they're like, I'm not so fan of the Twitter. We're a big fan of the conservative actions. We're a fan of Gorsuch. We're a fan of the tax repeal. We're hoping you'll do some more things in the future as far as with Obamacare, with building the wall. I'm also curious, and I had debated on whether I was going to ask you this question or not. I'm going to go ahead because you seem like you can handle this question. And I'll preface this before. So I'm curious, you didn't start off in politics. It didn't sound like you were aiming to be a politician.
No.
And the Congress tends to have really low ratings. People don't tend to trust Congress people. And I say that, and I'm also a banker, people don't tend to trust bankers. And so what was your opinion on Congress before coming into it? And did your opinion change, or you still say, no, people are devious or whatever it is? What is your opinion on Congress at this point?
I mean, Congress as a whole, I think, has a reputation for not getting things done. But last week, I think, was a nice exception because there were several things that got passed. They passed a budget, although it only will last till January 18th. That was one of the things that was accomplished. And then also the tax reform was finally accomplished. So they did get a lot of things done last week. Now, I work for 3 different congressmen, and I currently Congressman Brad is my congressman, and he does weekly updates on our show. So I have a very positive. I like my congressman right now. I like Congressman Brad. I think he does a great job in trying to really listen to the people that he represents, making himself available. So I look more at individuals who serve in Congress as opposed to at the federal level. In general, I think everybody has kind of a negative general opinion of Congress. But unfortunately, I think most people have a negative opinion of most politicians in general. But that's something that we have worked really hard to try to change that culture, and it's going to take time.
But what are you guys doing to kind of change that perception? Well,
for one, having the radio town hall every week on Thursdays and making myself available. I don't get paid to do that. It's a lot of preparation, but it's something I feel it benefits constituents that are the listeners, and it covers a pretty wide viewing or listening audience rather, and people can just call in on that. I have year-round hours, so if somebody wants to meet, not just during session, but outside of session, we meet with them. I try to stay active in the district and go to community meetings. And
who are the people that you represent? Isn't it Colonial Heights and there was another?
Chesterfield, Colonial Heights, and Amelia, and that's part of, I'd say about half of Chesterfield.
Okay, that's great. And was there a reason you chose those sections to kind of get involved in, or was it just that was what was available at the time? Why did you get involved with those areas?
At the state level, you have to live in the district in which you run. So because I live in Chesterfield, I live in Midlothian, I live in the 11th Senatorial District, so that's where I have to run. So that would represent Chesterfield, Colonial Heights, and Amelia.
Okay, perfect. Well, cool. Well, I think this has been, a great interview. I also do a section called the bonus interview section. I know you've got other things you got to get going with today, and so I say we go ahead and slip into the bonus interview section real quick, and then I'll let you get going. I was curious, who are some of your favorite commentators that are conservative? Who you go to listen to? You're like, this is the dude or the dudette.
You're going to be very surprised, but I don't have a favorite.
You don't? Okay, who do you listen to though?
I don't have a favorite. I'm going to give. There are several people I could give a shout out to. Of course, I want people to listen to Cut to the Chase with Senator Chase. But,
of course. You said it at FM 97.1, is that what you said?
97.7.
97.7, okay.
But Laura Ingram, I appreciate her perspective. I think she does a really good job. And it's probably one of my favorites. Believe it or not, I listen to CBS in the morning.
Okay.
I like Gayle King.
Okay.
And she isn't someone I would consider as a conservative, but I just, I like to know what the other side thinks.
Of course, yeah.
I'm not just going to listen to people that share my views. I listen to people that don't share my views. So I listen to a lot of different media, if you will. I look at the Richmond Times-Dispatch for in my opinion, I think that's the best state overview of what's going on in the news. But a lot of times we just look at Google News. We look at there's many different options that are out there via internet.
Okay, yeah, because I don't.
One News Now is a really good one.
One News Now is an internet site.
No, that one is actually broadcast.
Okay.
So that one's a really good. I've been very impressed with that one as well. More of a conservative approach.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and I'm finding more and more conservatives are going online doing podcasts, and that's where I get a lot of my stuff. Like I'll go on to Fox and CNN to get kind of the overview, and then a lot of the people I listen to are going there as well, and then giving their commentaries on what they think is going on. So.
And I listen to Michael Savage because he's on my radio. He comes on right before me.
Yeah, there you go.
So I do listen to Michael Savage. I don't always agree with him but it's interesting to listen to, and so I appreciate that.
Perfect. Okay. So if you could become rich doing one thing you currently don't do, what would you want it to be?
Sleep.
You want to become rich on sleep. There's got to be some kind of industry for that.
I'd love to be able to sleep just for once. I'm telling you.
That's amazing. Okay, the sleep industry. That's what you're going into. That's amazing. I did not expect that answer.
No, I thought you said what would I want to do.
Yeah, how would you want to become rich? But that's a great answer. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, if I could get rich off sleeping, I would totally do it.
I could use some of that.
That's amazing.
Right now.
If you had to change citizenship, which country would you want to become a citizen of, and why?
Okay, I'm going to say heaven.
Heaven.
I bet you weren't expecting
You're like all the other countries were so bad compared to the U.S.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the U.S. Obviously, there's so much to do here. We are so blessed in our country to have so many rights and privileges and freedoms here that I think we take for granted because we live here. And then, I've gone to, interestingly enough, I have gone to different events sponsored by families that were from different countries where they treat women differently, and was actually asked to sit in the back of a room.
Wow.
I was there with one person that was running for.
And this was in another country, or this is just?
This was in the U.S.
Oh, it was in the U.S. Okay.
Yes, but it was. Anyway, I was asked to sit in the back of the room. I was up there with two other candidates. One was elected, I was elected, and one person was running for office. They were not elected, and so they were taking a picture, and they asked me to stand down. I mean, that's just that
about
was
to go off.
that was an interesting experience,
Yeah.
which was not a pleasurable experience,
Yeah.
and it really at that point made me realize I am so thankful for America and the country that we live in, and really women's rights in this country. We have a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Especially compared to a lot of other countries. It's unbelievable.
Okay, so you're pleading the fifth on this one. You did the politician maneuver where you went around.
I really don't have any other country that I would want to live in. I'm just being honest.
Fair enough. All right. Fair enough. If you could be a contestant on any game show, which would you like to be on?
Family Feud.
Family Feud.
My family and I love to watch this together, and it's a good bonding experience. We love that show.
I'll make a couple calls. I'll get you on. It's not a problem. If you could be the owner of any current team in professional sports, which one would you want?
Well, I'm kind of conflicted on this one.
Okay. I'll let you do two answers since you skipped question number 2.
So, my husband and my oldest son like the Dallas Cowboys.
Okay.
My next son likes the Atlanta Falcons, and my youngest son likes the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, wow.
So any of those would be great.
Okay. Man, your family's torn on sports. Wow. You usually see a little bit more cohesion, but I guess
know what
not.
happened there.
Oh, man. It was homeschooling. So if you could, I'm just joking. If you had to give up your children to the care of someone famous, who would you pick?
Oh my gracious. See, all my kids are 18 and older, so I hope they have a lot of money because teenagers are very expensive.
Yeah.
Who would I give my kids to? I don't know that I would want to give them to anybody, to be honest with you. And in fact, we were going back to the original question, if I could get paid to do anything that I would want to do, but I would have to change the question to what I don't get to do enough of that I would want to do would be an at-home mom.
Be a stay-at-home mom.
I love being at home with my kids because they're just constantly learning and you're helping them. So I know that didn't answer your question.
So you're pleading the fifth on that one too. All right. Well,
I don't feel like I'm pleading the fifth.
If people would like to follow you on social media, where can they go?
Well, they can go to chaseforsenate.com. I'm also on Twitter.
Okay.
So I think it's A/11 Chase.
Okay.
Out there.
All right.
I think it's on my website.
For those who can't see, she's looking to her assistant to confirm. Obviously, you go on Twitter a lot.
I don't remember the handle. I do go on there every once in a while, but yeah.
Okay, but the main one would be the chaseforsenate.com would be the one. Well, great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you guys are busy. Y'all got a lot of stuff going down today, so I appreciate you taking some time to talk with me and to join us on the podcast.
Happy to do it.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you again next week on Reaching Out with Zack Carter. All right. Awesome. Perfect. Yeah, look at that. See, I'm a professional. Hey everyone, I just wanted to thank Senator Amanda Chase for joining us again today. Just as a side note, we recorded her interview a few weeks ago, so if at some point she talked about events that happened that don't really fit the timeline of when we released this episode, that's why. Now you know. But before we finish up, I just wanted to talk about the ways you can support the podcast. First, head over to our Facebook page and click the like button and share the page with all your friends. Also, you can go on over to YouTube and iTunes and subscribe. Everybody loves us. Democrats love us, Republicans love us, independents love us. I don't know if you know this, but Hillary Rodham Clinton actually dedicated her book, What Happened, to this show. That's right. And Trump tweets about us all the time. Both sides love us. Sorry, what? We can't say that? Well, it's fine. No one checks our facts. It's fine. Okay. Anywho, go on and rate us, like us, leave comments, share about us, talk about us, let everyone know. Thanks again for listening to Reaching Out with Zack Carter. I'm Zack Carter, and we'll see you next week.